Hi, I'm Stephanie Hansen, and you're listening to Dishing with Stephanie's Dish, the podcast where we talk to cookbook authors and people that are obsessed with food. And today we have Lish Steiling. Did I say that right, Lish?
Nailed it.
Okay, and Tamron Hall. And
You said it wrong. It's Tamron. No, I'm kidding. It's Tamron.
Oh, I was like, shoot, I thought for sure I had that one right. Okay, Lish Steiling and Tamron Hall, and they are the authors of Confident to Cook, Recipes for a No Pressure and Joyous Kitchen. You may have heard of Tamron Hall before. She is a talk show host. She is also a big foodie who has done a lot of work with the Food Network and judged some shows. And Lish, I'm really profoundly impressed by. She is with the Today Show. She's done segments. She is also you're a foodie in your own right, Lish, and I have followed some of your other projects that you've worked on. And when I was looking at the book, I was like, okay, she's got Suzanne Goyne, she's got Gail, she's got Carla, she's got Kristen Kish, she's got Giada. You have like all the heavy hitters in my world of people in the cookbook scene that commented on your book, so that's pretty cool.
Between Tamron and I, we've got some folks that.
Now, how did you guys meet?
Tamron?
Well, we actually met at the Today Show. Lish is no longer with the Today Show. She launched her own company, which has been phenomenal in merging the world of food and fashion with her wife. But long before she launched her company and long before I've been fortunate enough to win 2 Emmys for my daytime talk show, we met at the Today Show. I was the host of the third hour, and my office was next door to, lucky enough, the kitchen at the Today Show. And at the time I was single. I really didn't cook a lot, but I've always, as you pointed out, Stephanie, loved food. I guess they call the foodies these days, or those days. And I would go to the kitchen and grab whatever was left over from our very elaborate cooking segments. People often ask, what happens to that food? And honestly, the anchors of the show eat the food, or the crew. But I had first dibs because I was next door, and I went over to Lish, and we just struck up a conversation. And I noticed that she had 2 tattoos on her inner forearm, and one was a radish, which I've never seen a radish in person until I met Lish, but I was like, okay, I recognize that from the salad bar. It's a radish. And then there was a carrot, and she also had a few bruises, and I thought, wow, cooking is really hard because she's all bruised up. I said, what's up with the bruises? And she said, I'm in a boot camp, me and my wife, and we take this boot camp on Saturdays. And I thought, okay, I'll join you at this boot camp if you help me learn to cook. And for background, Stephanie, my grandfather was a pit master in Luling, Texas. So I come from rich history of cooks. My father had cooked all of his life since age 14. He was in the military, and he passed away in 2008. And I was looking for a way into cooking, and I didn't have him anymore. This great cook was no longer in our life. So we started laughing. Ha ha. Lish said, okay, game on. I went to the boot camp, and here we are 15 years later, a cookbook from that day.
And are you still in the boot camp?
No, we're not, but I'm a great cook because I learned from a great chef. And the funny thing is, no, I am not in that boot camp. Neither of us are, I should say, but Lish is still in great shape. I've been in morning TV prior to the Today Show for 30 years. And to your point, between the two of us, Lish has worked with some of the best chefs in the business. And I've had every chef that you can name on the shows that I've done, but I was deeply inspired by Lish's authenticity. It's one thing to do a cooking segment for 2 minutes, 3 minutes on a show. It's another for someone to say, okay, you know what? Let me let you into this world, right? And I was lucky enough, even on a segment on the Today Show, I mentioned that I wanted to learn to cook, and I was inspired by my dad. And the great barefoot contessa Ina Garden invited me to her place in the Hamptons. And there I am sitting.
Lucky.
I know. But even in that experience, I was so focused on her, I couldn't focus on how do I learn to cook? Yes, I wanted to nestle between she and Jeffrey, but I needed to learn to cook. And I had my ace in a hole, my goat, Lish, as my dear friend, who then said, let's get to it. But there was one complicated factor. We lived on other ends of Manhattan. And even though it's an 11-mile island, it will take you 45 minutes to get to where she was. And she started coaching me like all the great coaches through words, through encouragement, and text message.
Wow. I'm impressed because I thought you were going to say Zoom. just because we
No,
all
this
got...
was pre-Zoom. There was
pre-Zoom,
no, the only
yeah.
Zoom was that old cartoon, Zoom, Zoom, Zoom in the room. There was no Zoom. This was all pre-pandemic. And Lish started out, and she still has, I believe, our first text message. I know I do. And it was like, what do you want to cook? And, you know, I had a grocery store near me. Fairway at the time was open near me. And I saw this, you know, bronzino filet. I knew I wanted to make a fish. I didn't know much else. So she said, grab a shallot, grab some thyme, grab a lemon. And that was all through text. And then we were off to the races, Lish.
That's pretty cool. Lish, I feel like I already know you just because A, you've got a radish on your arm, and B, you're from the Midwest. That, you know,
Indeed.
People talk about the authenticity. We just have it. I don't know why we do, but a lot of Midwest people just do. When she asked you how to cook, I mean, why did you do it? Like, my friends ask me how to cook, and I'm like, yeah, sure. Let me just get right on that.
No, I fully love, first of all, I love teaching. I taught ballet when I was younger, you know, back in Milwaukee, and just love like opening people's minds to different things and also empowering people. You can make people feel so good by just empowering them how to do something. And like, it's something that I've always had a passion for. So when she was actually open to just having a conversation and asking the questions, like she was just as committed as I was to, you know, she wanted to learn. And so we could just have honest conversation about how to do things. I could use the words that I use, you know, to describe things instead of like having to be very proper about it. And it just kind of grew from there. So I've always been, I like to support people and encourage them to do the things that they want to do as much as I can, you know? So.
Well, and teaching is a really unique skill, and it seems like that kind of turned you on and you had it. How did that like translate into a book? Because I've written a book, writing a book right now, and I rue the day I said I would do number 2, because it's like in your brain and it's just all consuming, and it takes like a year.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, even from the text messages, we always joked saying we would do a cookbook called Cooking by Text, because it was the conversations that we had, the honest conversations. So I think that we kind of had it in our back pocket a little bit for a couple of years.
And honestly, I mean, anything that's hard, first of all, I don't know anything that's easy in life, and that's what we have in common in this cookbook, is that we take you through it. But also, by the way, that's my bird. I'm in my actual home, in my actual kitchen, where the cover of our phenomenal book, and a lot of, speaking of the authenticity, we wanted these things to really reflect our true lives. So we didn't have a stage kitchen. This is my actual grill. It's my actual kitchen, Lish's actual hands, my actual hands, no stand-ins. You know, Halle Berry and I don't know, Jessica Chastain were not available to be our stand-ins. So this is all us authentically doing this, including the bird who participates in the cooking segments. As long as we're not doing chicken, she avoids all that, you know, her friends. But, you know, the reality is, to your point about that Midwest sensibility and that authenticity, I lived in Chicago for 10 years. I'm a Texan. We think we rival anyone in authenticity, but we're both very grateful. And to have the opportunity in life to be a published cookbook author, an author of any kind, right? These publishers, you don't go in and say, tonight, even though I'm on a talk show, even though she's won a James Beard Award and is lauded by her peers, the reality is they're not giving out cookbooks, that you earn this. And so we feel, Stephanie, a very unique story in that the two of us met in this serendipitous way. But how many times, to your point, if friends come to you and said, I want to learn to cook, with millions of cookbooks out there, the confidence level is still so low. So Lish and I thought about it. Okay, how do you build someone up, right? In confidence, you build them from the ground up. Well, how do you do that? Give them the tools. So our book starts with, what tools do you really need in the drawer that's right behind me? Right. What do you really need in your pantry? Now, you can have the things that you want. Some people have cultural things that they want in their kitchen. There's a big viral thing happening right now on social media. Name something that your grandma taught you in the kitchen. And a lot of these things aren't in your everyday grocery store. They've been passed down. So when you have those things that are cultural to you and how you were raised, but they're just certain stock things, right? So we started from the bottom. What should you put in your pantry? What do you really need in your kitchen drawers? And then technique. So Lish starts the book with technique, something as simple as how to do an egg, right? How many times I was embarrassed to say to someone, I don't scramble good eggs. My husband thinks he does. He's wrong and he's not in the room, so I won't tell him. He's terrible at it. He thinks every Mother's Day I want these eggs that he makes, and I pretend. But these simple things in life, I was able to ask Lish without embarrassment, right? So when you say salt your water, I used to do a pinch thinking that's salt in the water. Lish said, no, you've got to taste that water. It's got to feel and taste salty.
Yeah.
And so exactly like a seed. Searing a steak. People think I put the steak on my pan. I got a great pan. I went out and bought it at some fancy schmancy store, and I'm going to put my steak on. Then I'm going to turn the heat up. That's not, and Lish said, wait. You need hot pan fat. That's the technique. That's the science behind it. So I was able to be your embarrassing cousin and ask all of the questions you want to ask, but you're afraid to.
So when you break that down, let's just ask you both separately. What is in the kitchen drawer, that thing that you feel like you always need and you only get to answer one?
Oh, chef's knife. 5,000%. A sharp chef's knife. I have a brand that I like. It feels good in my hand. It's easy to maintain the edge. Like, that is 100%.
Okay, Tamron, how about you?
Mine is a fish spatula. I'd never heard or seen a fish spatula, and my list sometimes keeps me from saying it. But going back, Stephanie, to what we were saying, when I was setting out on this journey right after my dad passed away, some friends gave me a cooking class at a store, and it was a visual, like you're on the one side of the cabinet and you're watching them do everything.
Yep.
And one of the chefs saw that I was really just emotional and just getting I got to learn. I was scared to run out of time, to quote Hamilton, the musical. And because I'd set myself a 1-year deadline to cook a holiday meal for my family. And I went into this store, Williams-Sonoma, which I adore and I love, but I left with like every employee following me like Pretty Woman with bags and bags and bags and bags and bags of things. Some of the things I still have, other things I realized weren't so practical for my lifestyle. But Lish came over like a week or two later and she said, wait a minute, we're going to the Restaurant Depot in like Lower East Side, New York. We go in the Restaurant Depot and she's like, we got to get you a fish spatula. And I'm like, oh, it's a spatula shaped like a fish. No, it's a fish spatula. I'm like, wait. And it is my go-to tool. It's a gift that I give to people like who are starting to cook. It's like my, when they would set sail a new boat and the queen would like hit it with the champagne.
Yes.
I christen your kitchen with a fish spatula. That's thin, funny. It's flexible, it's light. You can flip things, fish and other things, obviously, with a lot more ease. And that helps build your confidence, because how many times does someone, you go to flip it and then it sticks or it doesn't, and you get all trapped in your head that, oh gosh, I've messed up. Sometimes the tools can help that.
Yeah. And depending on what the tools are. Okay. So who do you think is the ideal person that's going to buy this book? Is it literally someone who doesn't know how to cook? Is it someone that loves cooking but wants to improve their skills? Or is it based on... I think that's
a great question. That's a solid and great question, because I think, and I'll let Lish also, tell her view, but from my perspective, it really is for people who are just starting out all the way to people who consider themselves great chefs in the kitchen, because what we have are also 73 plus phenomenal recipes, some from her, background in Wisconsin, some from my roots in Texas. We have a short rib that is phenomenal that I'm making in a couple of days, and it's 90 degrees. And someone said, can you make short rib in 90 degrees? I'm like, can you eat in 90 degrees? And we have, a chicken salad. We have the burger, which we both love. We have drinks, we have snacks, but it really is for someone who wants to jump in, at the beginning of this race, or someone who is, I don't know, the Usain Bolt. You are out, you are across the finish line, but you're looking for new and inventive recipes, which Lish masterfully created for this book.
Lish, what is some of your favorite recipes in the book? We just got a few.
Honestly, that slow cooked short rib, it's not like what you think of as short ribs. Like, they're not cut in little squares. They're full slabs of short ribs that you slow roast, low and slow. You rub it all down with stuff the night before, so all the flavor gets in there. Those are sexy as all get up. But the spatchcock chicken is amazing with pink peppercorns. I love, there's an egg dish in there that's with creamed spinach and feta and mint. That's really sexy. I mean, it's hard to pick just one, right? The tahini malt.
Yeah.
The tahini malt is delicious.
Oh, that
An
sounds
excellent
delicious.
chocolate chip cookie, triple chocolate chip. I mean,
Even our snacks. I mean, we have these phenomenal, you get your basic kettle chip. We made these on my show and you season them. We have a mimosa bar where, we agreed to be the testers, if you will, for the mimosa bar, where we pair this delicious cherry with the Prosecco with a little salt, brings out the flavor. So it really is and I know people like to say, let me tell you, the only thing it is not a vegan cookbook.
Yeah.
And God bless those who are.
Sure.
But we want it to be authentic to who we are.
Texas
and we
and
have,
Wisconsin.
exactly. We are Texas and Wisconsin. You wouldn't have beef in this country without the states we were born in.
Yeah.
But we also love hearty vegetables. So Lish has this, bowl salad, like really it's almost everything you can imagine in a salad. And as she describes it, it's all the good stuff that's at the bottom of the salad and you're done and you're like, wait a minute, that's all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Because
bottom.
we were also mindful, Stephanie, that we have a chapter on lunch because, to your point, asking, did we do this over Zoom? As we were creating this book together and telling our story, Zoom really did become a thing. And now, for example, on my staff, somewhere around 60% to 75 have never come into the studio regularly or don't come into regularly. And there's no reason to feel that I have to skip lunch or I have to grab some tasteless bar or that I have to run up a delivery tab that's way more than I could probably afford. So we have these lovely low-key lunches in there that you can prepare for yourself and no longer feel that, okay, I'm not in the office, so I can't pop down and get a grab and go. You can equip those things in your own home.
Love that. Lish, have you ever made Suzanne Goins' Sunday supper at Luke, her short rib?
So I haven't made that specific recipe, but I will say Sunday suppers at Luke's was one of the first cookbooks that I would go to constantly. It was so inspiring to me. I loved and still do love her style of food. The first time that I got to meet her, I was working with Jada De Laurentiis, and we were doing a woman's dinner for Alex's Lemonade Stand. And it was Suzanne Goin, Nancy Oakes, Nancy Silverton, April Bloomfield, Jada, and Sherry Yard.
Yeah.
And I literally texted my old chef saying, oh my God, this is I can't make this up. I mean, it was like a dream come true that to be in a kitchen with all of these outstanding female chefs, which we shouldn't even have to say female chefs. They're just outstanding chefs, so that book is very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, mine too. Because I think her short rib takes like a day and a half to make.
Yes.
Because you do the marinating. And I just remember making that for my husband and feeling like I'd arrived, like that I could do that.
Yeah.
That was a sort of sophisticated cookbook. And I always saw myself as just a home cook. And when I finished that dish, I really felt like, wow, I think I got this. And that confidence that you get from trying unique recipes and also trusting the people that wrote the book that you're cooking from. Because let's be honest, and no offense to Martha Stewart, because I love her as a person, but some of the books, the recipes were like maybe 60 to 70% solid versus like an Ina Garten where every recipe works all the time, 100%. She tested that thing 30 times.
And I think that Lish has that same, Stephanie, I'll jump in and tell you because, listen, she created these recipes. We talked it through. And for example, our first family vacation together, we all went to Antigua. And my nephew, who's here visiting now from Buffalo, and we went out on this great adventure. And when we came back, I said, when we do our cookbook, we have to have a whole fish because to your point, it's a sense of accomplishment. So these recipes Lish toiled over and created and really not just for a book. This is a story of her building these recipes over time. And my assignment was to take the recipes and then cook them in this kitchen. And so again, we kept that student teacher relationship because to your point, Stephanie, I didn't want people to go and my name on this book, her name's on this book, and then cook the recipe and say, wait a minute, I thought Tamron Hall really liked food. This is terrible. So I needed to, for my credibility and peace of mind, to go in and make all of these. And there is in the book, you see after most of the recipes, there's a Q&A because I would call her and say, for example, I couldn't find pink peppercorn when we have an elote style corn, and I was out in the Hamptons and Sag Harbor, and I don't know if they just had a run on pink peppercorn. I'm not sure what happened, but I went to like 5 different stores. I'm like, I can't find pink peppercorn. She's like, okay, make this adjustment. You can still do this. You can still do that. And so we ask, or I ask for substitutes. We also have a little disclaimer when something requires a night prep before, right? Because I've had that. I've got the chicken. I saw this recipe, to your point, in someone's cookbook or on someone's app, and then it's in fine print, marinade or brine, or what. And
overnight.
I'm like, gosh darn it, I've got this chicken, and now I'm mad, right? So
And you don't have dinner.
And I don't have dinner, and now I'm going to order takeout because I'm mad. And I'm now mad at the person who wrote the book. So I wanted to really give that authentic voice of what it feels like to be that person in your kitchen with a chicken, and realizing in the fine print it said marinate overnight.
Well, Stephanie, you know, like as a cookbook author, it's a fine line to walk, right? Because you really want to empower people. Like, you want to make them feel good. And we can look at a recipe and go, oh, that's not going to work, and change it. But the home cook can't. Most home cooks can't.
Right.
And so when they fail at a recipe, they feel like it's their fault. And that's like anti what we want to do, right? It's like you want to lift them up. They can't look at that and say, oh, that was just a poorly written recipe. They're like, I must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want to avoid. Yeah, that's what we want to avoid with a confident cook, is really boosting the confidence and supporting them along the journey, and giving them recipes that do work and are executable at the same time, that they're not so above and beyond that you feel intimidated by them.
They are, we have some, big accomplishment moments. I mean, a spatchcock chicken. You can go your whole life and never spatchcock anything. I had.
Yes, you can.
I was 50 years old before I spatchcock a chicken. So, I mean, but we wanted you to build that confidence, right? So you'll find recipes that you instantly feel like, oh, I got that. Yeah. We have this baked French toast that, it's delicious. It's cardamom. It's overnight soak. It's, following the recipe, putting it in. It's a different experience, I think, for a novice cook, because a lot of times people think overnight, oh, that's going to be hard. It actually eases your stress the next day. And it's one of the group recipes that I cook. Oh boy, I probably do that French toast every time someone visits my home. And my godson, his mother doesn't cook. Well, she does now because she's my best friend and she's got the pre copy of this book. But he came over and he goes, Mom, this is the best. I can eat this every day. He's like a 9-year-old. He's like, this is heaven. But I prepare it and put it in the refrigerator, let it soak overnight, and bring it out. And it's a crowd pleaser. But we wanted people to have those moments of accomplishment on a small scale, but also a grand scale. It took me 2 solid tries to spatchcock a chicken. The first time I called Lish, and I was like, I can throw this chicken.
She was not having it.
It can go back to Kentucky. I was done, but I was determined to learn. And then once you read what she says, follow it through, it just clicks. It's like a bicycle. At some point, it just clicks. And this book is about letting it click for those who are starting out, but also making it interesting and challenging and delicious and sexy and savory enough for those who feel that they've cooked everything, but you've not cooked these things.
I do love, people can pre-order the book. It comes out on September 3rd. You guys have both used the word sexy to describe food. You're the first people I've ever interviewed about a cookbook that have used that word. And
really?
Yes. And it's really intriguing to me. It's very like titillating, right? Because you're like, oh, the recipes are sexy. But it's also, what does like a sexy recipe or sexy presentation mean to you?
Stephanie, I'll do one thing. Do this for me. Go, sexy.
Okay.
Sexy. See, that's it. When you take that bite, everyone's into the audio. What is it? AMSR. I got
AMSR.
AMSR. That's the whole. It's sensation. How many times have you taken a bite of something, this tahini malt, and you're going to say, That's like your honeymoon right there. You're welcome. So
I like it. I like the idea of a tahini malt too. So that's great.
So good. So good.
Oh my God.
Well, how fun to talk to you guys. Thanks for spending time with us today. I will put a link. Do you want people to pre-order at Amazon or independent bookstores? What's your preference?
I mean, we love supporting independent bookstores. You can go to aconfidentcook.com and we have a link there to pre-order and a number of different options for people to make it easy. And
you can get it wherever your books are sold, whether it's a local bookstore, which we love to support, or any place, because one of the things that we recognize, even with the book, Stephanie, we are kids from small towns and things aren't always as accessible in a small little town as they are in the big old cities that we live in. So wherever you get your books, please check it out and enjoy, and make sure you end every single one with a
Okay, I'm always going to think about that now too. When someone does that, I'm going to think about you guys and laugh. Well, if you want to revisit, I'll go ahead and I'll get this podcast posted so people can pre-order. But if around the holidays, when you're ready for another boost and want to talk about it again, just give us a jingle. We'll have you back because it was real fun.
Oh, what an honor. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so
Thanks
much,
so much
Stephanie.
for being our guest. I appreciate you.
A pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care.